Well, hey there, my friend. I'm so glad that you're with me on the podcast today. I've got a brand new friend that I'm super excited to introduce you to, my friend Jen Brandon, who is an artist from up in Pennsylvania and doing some incredible things. Jen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. As I was mentioning before, I was checking out your website and I was like, this woman is on fire. She's got so much stuff going on. For those folks who maybe have not met you yet or heard about what you're doing online and in your own art career, why don't you just kind of let us know who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Great. Yeah. So I'm Jen Brandon and I hail from Pennsylvania. Was originally from New York and I'm a professional painter. I specialize in all things equine and canine. It's so much fun. And I also get to help artists discover their expressive, loose painting style, which is a lot of fun.
Nice,
So,
nice. Now, did you
yeah,
grow up around animals? Is that how that kind of came out for you, or
I
what?
did. Grew up a farm girl in Pennsylvania. I had horses and sheep, and we had a donkey named Gus. It was hilarious. And my mom is an artist, so my love of animals and art just like married together in an easy way.
Nice, nice. So was she selling her work, or did you have a contact for that growing up, or?
Yeah, she's a professional painter and teacher.
Oh,
Deb
cool.
Canby Studio is hers. Little plug there, and she's phenomenal. And she actually homeschooled me growing up, so I had a personal tutor my entire life as a painter.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So I got to ask, when did you sell your first piece then?
I think I was 12.
I was going to say, I bet it was young.
Yeah.
That's awesome. There's something about, I remember my son Cameron, he used to help me when he was younger, come in and make baskets and, that sort of thing. And I remember him, making a little money the first time in the studio. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm making a connection here between what I
Yes.
did and being able to buy some candy money or something like that, so.
Oh, it's so important. Yeah, those initial sales are a big deal.
That's right. That's right. So as you grew up and came into adulthood and that sort of thing, was being a professional artist, has that always been on your heart? Or did you kind of come to that later, or how did that work for you?
Since I could remember, there were two things. I either wanted to be a missionary as a kid or I wanted to be an artist. And I knew one of those two things, or I was going to make them both work together. That was what was on my heart. And, it was just a very obvious leading of God's hand in my life to
Yeah.
become a professional painter. And there really wasn't much question along the way. Just one step after another. This was the right step. This was the right step. And then here we are.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting for all of us. I always say, God's not looking for your perfection. He's looking for your yes. And I think it's those little yeses, right, along the way
Absolutely.
that keep opening the doors and feeling the grace on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to ask, I guess, because, about the spiritual perspective of your work and just your relationship with the Lord, because I think for so many people out there, I know a lot of our listeners that, they may feel this connection with the Lord in their faith journey and sometimes in their art, but they're not quite sure, how that fits into their business. And that's maybe why they're listening to this podcast or reading
Yeah.
one of our books or things like that. But when did you start to notice the connection between what you were doing creatively and what God had on your life, as far as your calling and that sort of thing?
I don't think I could put a specific date on this for you, but
Yeah.
I feel like I know for me, faith has been a big part of my life since I was a child. Like I was raised up to have faith and, develop that walk on my own as I grew into it and claimed it as my own. But for me, I feel like my connection with God as the creator has just been really special to me because
Yeah.
as I do my work, I'm enjoying creating something that I feel like is beautiful to add to the world. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's just always been a connecting point for me to the God, who
Yeah.
created everything. And I've also always felt like he gives people gifts, like a parent would give a gift to a child. And
Sure.
I have a child now, and if I give her a gift, I want to see her enjoying it and using it and playing with it and trying new things and developing her skills with it. And I just always felt like, well, God gave me this gift, so I'm going to go have fun with it and develop it
Exactly.
and enjoy it.
That's
So,
so wonderful because there's so many artists, and how do I know this? Because I see them every day in our mentoring program or email questions or whatever. They really have a lot of pressure on them because maybe they feel like because they're a Christian, because they're have a relationship with the Lord, that somehow their art has to be overtly portraying their faith journey and that sort of thing, as opposed to kind of what I've always felt, which is exactly what you're saying, that, you know, God's given me a gift. If I love baskets, I trust that Jesus loves baskets, and that as I do the thing that I'm created to do, that brings him glory, and he uses that. And it seems like that's kind of the perspective that you've come from as well.
Very much. I don't paint a cross into every one of my pieces.
Right.
It's not necessarily a gospel presentation inside of every one of my works or biographies. I do make it a point to try to be a light. You know, I want to be a positive light and reflect God's glory, but this is relationship. I feel like that comes into relationship as I'm building with people that I get to know or give them an opportunity to ask me something about my faith. And my artwork is meant to bring glory to God, but it's not necessarily always a preaching matter.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when we can approach our work like that, it does take the pressure off and allow us to see our clients not as some evangelistic project necessarily, but as an opportunity just to love people through what we do and to build authentic relationships. And I just love that, which kind of leads into what I want to talk to you about today, because both of our journeys have kind of over the years ended us up in being able to work with what some people would call high-end clients, you know, doing commissioned work and selling, you know, larger pieces and that sort of thing. When did that start to happen for you? Because I know for me, it kind of was a little bit later in my journey, but when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, I love creating for and with the client, and creating with I always call my commission works, you know, kind of creating with a sense of space, that I'm creating for a space or a home or whatever. So when did that start to kind of unfold for you?
I'd say over a decade ago, I started working with some pretty high-end clients, and I recognized that they were wanting my style. They wanted my style. It wasn't a matter of how hard can I work, or for some reason they weren't as likely to dive into my creative process either. And they wanted what I offered already. And they understood kind of real prices of real art, you know? And so I was like, that's it. That's the ticket. I want to be able to create real art for people who are expecting that, not who just want somebody to do what they're saying on the canvas.
Well, and I don't know if you would agree, but I've found over the years, again, not that you're just raising your prices willy-nilly, but as you create more expensive works that are more investment pieces, one of a kind, unique pieces, I find that the client gets easier and easier to work with, because they trust your artistic gifting, and they like you said, they want what you're bringing to the table. And people always, I had an artist tell me this. I'm just thinking back in my own journey, you know, years ago, a painter friend of mine, Jonas Gerard, who just passed away this last year in his mid-70s, had been an active painter for over 50 years, selling his work and all this. And he told me, he said, Matt, he said, the bigger they are, the easier they are to sell. And I was like, and you know, he's selling $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 pieces, you know, in the studio right next door to me. And I was like, dude, you have like, what are you talking about? He's like, no. He said, when you get to that level, there's a level of trust and a level of desire where price is not the first thing that people are looking for. And once I embraced that in my heart, which took a little bit, you know, and maybe you could talk about that. You got to believe it in your heart first that you can do that. That changed everything for me. And I think it gave me a confidence of working with those kind of clients that that they really appreciated and was attractive to us continue to build the business.
Yes, I love how you said that. And I feel like that trust factor is a really big deal. And I think a lot of times you just kind of have to come into your own as an artist. We can start off a little insecure as artists, or at least I know I did. And I felt protective of my rights as an artist. And why don't they trust me? And as I gained skill, as I gained confidence in my skill, you know, incrementally raised my prices throughout the years, I realized it was about establishing trust with my clients. And I actually would love to share some things with your listeners about how I did that, because I think it would really help them. And through that, then my clients were like, I don't want to get in your way. Go create, because I trust you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hear that about building trust, because I think that, you know, that what some call the KLT factor, that know, like, and trust. I mean, that is so key. And then also, as you're doing that, and we've all been there, if you do commissioned work at all, how do you keep that trust and build that trust, not only with your client, but also with yourself, so that you don't feel like you're selling yourself out and losing your own creative process in the middle of that. So what's that journey been like for you?
So it's definitely been a journey. I've learned a lot. And when you finally, it's always a journey, but when you get to that point where you're like smooth sailing, you're like, yes, this is the right rhythm. This is a good rhythm.
Yes.
I've finally been able to find that really comfortable rhythm with my clients where I know that I'm setting them up to be very confident in my process.
Yeah.
So I'm basically, the first thing is to provide them with a style that they love and appreciate. So
right. Do
I'm
great
not trying
work.
to connect, right. I'm not trying to connect with clients who are looking for a different approach than mine.
Right.
My work is very expressive, bold, a little bit more modern. I'm not trying to connect with clients who are looking for very traditional portraits, for example. If they come to me, I say, I hope best of luck. I'm not the artist for you. So I think it's important to be able to really establish who you are as an artist and what it is that you're providing your clients.
Let me just pause there, because I think for all of us that begin to sell at this level and having people come to you for commissioned work and that sort of thing, being able to say no to the wrong client is as important, if not more important, than saying yes to the right client. Because I'm sure you've been in this situation. You say yes to a project, you're like, well, I need the money, or I could do that, and you end up hating it the whole time.
Right.
And is not fulfilling for you, and you're not giving your best work to the client either, right?
Exactly. And I think artists a lot of times are like, well, I don't have a specific style. I like dabbling in a bunch of things, and that's okay. And it's good to grow as an artist, but I do think it's important to have a voice that your
Yes.
clients can depend on. So when
Right.
they come to you, they know what they're getting from you. They're coming to you because they want that.
Yes.
So I do feel like that's important. I know that's kind of a different rabbit trail we could go off on a different time, but
Yeah, I do. I love that though, because otherwise the art, you kind of become a commodity, and they can do this, they can do that. And it's like, no, that's not what we're going for, because then you just become the kind of the handyman of art, she can fix this and do that.
right. And then
That's
we're not
not what
talking
commands
about,
the prices, right?
right. And then we're not really talking about working with high-end clients because
That's right.
they usually
Exactly.
don't want the fuss of having to deal with quite so multifaceted. They want to know what they're getting and they don't want their time wasted.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely a mutual kind of trust there.
Yes.
So keep going with that. Other things on building trust before we talk about creative process, because I think that's so key. Because I find for me, like, commissions come primarily not from advertising, but from referrals. I mean, they come from people who you do a great job for, then somebody else comes in their $1 million home or $10 million home and says, oh, I want something, like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, working with clients, my clients know I have their best interests at heart.
mhm.
I'm not in there just talking about myself or what I'm going to do with my work. I'm engaging with them. A lot of my work is very personal. It's about a personal animal of theirs, which is part of their family. So
Yes.
I'm engaging with them about their animal, about their life. What is their home like? What would they like this to feel like? Do they have a specific room they want it in? It's about the client.
Yeah.
And so I want them to know that I'm invested in them. They're investing in me. My work is invested in them.
Yeah.
So I want them to know that I have their best interest at heart. So I start with actually like a Zoom call or a phone call. Before, that used to frighten me so much. I much preferred, let's get everything in writing. I might
Right.
forget something. And it was just a little bit more sterile feeling. And now it's personal,
Yeah.
and I get to connect with them. And these connections last for decades, which is amazing.
Well, I love the fact that you're owning your business, and you're doing business as a business owner that really works for you, as opposed to, again, kind of jumping and snapping to everything that the whim of a client may have. You're coming in and saying, hey, this is the process. I know this is going to honor you. It's going to honor me in the process. This helps me to give you the best product. And I know for me, I learned early on, there are things that I can do that really, really make the client feel special. And I remember, it's funny, years ago, I remember doing a demo at a really high-end florist in this area that's not far from here, where a lot of my clients have, their second or third $10 million mountain house.
Mhm.
And I just got a crazy area. But I remember I was doing the demo that day, and the guy who owned the place, every time somebody pulled up in their Mercedes, Bentley, Jaguar, whatever it was, he would go out and he would go, oh oh, Miss So-and-so. I just knew their name right off. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you're here. What was, and I kept noticing they were bringing their own like urns or flower pots
Yeah.
or whatever. And I learned really quickly that's one of the things that they did is that they would do flowers for your home. You could bring whatever vase or container you wanted to them. They would do it in that and then deliver it back at no charge, no additional charge to you. And it was just this like really concierge approach
Yes.
to selling their art. And I immediately started doing that sort of thing where I would go out to people's property. I do woven sculpture. So all these years, I would go out to people's property, harvest off their property, just like you're saying, like
Yeah.
into their house, you see, and the level of relationship and
Yeah.
connection that you develop with people is absolutely irreplaceable. And I think maybe just to talk about this just for a second, I mean, this is so rich conversation. Guys, let me just tell you, if you're listening to this right now, this is gold. Like you need to rewind this and listen to this multiple times because you don't always hear this kind of thing, what we're talking about here of the level of connection. But I can remember, over the years doing this over and over and over again and getting referrals back and forth, and other artists looking at me and they're like, why do you do that? Like, why do you spend so much time? Like, why don't you just have a website and let people order off your website? And I'm like, you have no clue. Like, there are people, I think a lot of artists nowadays think, oh, if I just have a website and I just sell things online, it'd be so much easier than having to deal with a client and I can just stay in the studio and do my work. And I'm like, yeah, you can do that, but there's a cap immediately that you're putting. I mean, wouldn't you say? I think there's a cap that comes on your work, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and don't you think when you're working with clients in that way, you're developing that relationship, doesn't it infuse into your work, into your studio
Yeah.
as you're working?
Yeah.
I know for me, the vibes I'm getting with my clients, like absolutely, I think about them. Their energy impacts how I work in my studio for the good or the bad,
Yep.
usually the good.
Right.
And those are the people I aim to work with,
Yeah.
my ideal client. And when you work with them and you get to know them, it actually increases the value of your work, in my opinion. It increases the value of my work because I'm working at my best.
Yes.
I want to create something awesome for them because I have a great relationship with them and it's so much deeper. It's so much more personal. It's not just a picture that they're going to put on their wall. It's infused with that meaning in that relationship.
Yeah, and they feel that and they tell that story over and over and over again, which becomes this, I think one of the things I learned early on in working with luxury home owners and people, high net worth individuals, you can't market yourself into those communities. You have to be kind of pre-vetted and recommended into most of those by people who are already in that community, whether it be trusted advisors or people that are actually, at that level personally. And I just found, again, when people love you, know, like, and trust you, know that you do great work, know you're when they refer you or somebody sees you with them or whatever at a party or at this, whatever, you're already in, like the sale is already made. It's not like, well, how much is this going to cost? No, it's like, when can you be here? And what can you do for me?
Yes, it's a really beautiful thing. And it's what a fun way to be able to have that connection grow and grow as they're referring you and your work.
Yeah. Now, so this is the bright, shiny side of commissions, high net worth individuals and high-end clients and all this. The downside, all right, that can happen, and we've all experienced this. I know I've experienced this. When the things that I started doing that really connected with people, started going, and you start seeing, six-figure art business, multiple six-figure art business, popularity, all this kind of thing. There can be a little of this soul-sucking feeling, like, okay, if I make one more of these, or if I create one more of these in this style, I'm gonna rip my hair out. And so there is this balance that we all have to find, right, between creating things that we know sell, creating things that work for our clients and they love, and at the same time, respecting our own creative process. So I know that's something that you are actively navigating and trying to find balance in. How are you finding that happening for you?
Well, certainly it's been a journey.
Sure.
For me, it's been a matter of actually learning to walk my clients through as much as they need to know about my creative process. I think sometimes as artists, we expect everybody understands. Like,
Yeah.
why don't they just understand? I need them to not bother me right now so I can just go make great art, you know?
Sure.
But they don't. They're excited. They want to be involved in the process. And I know for me, establishing clear guidelines for the process is huge for them, and it puts them at ease, and it also kind of creates a really comfortable boundary for me. And each artist is different. Some artists like to have their client a part of every step of the process.
Right.
I'm not like that. I like to bring all the collaboration process into the beginning when we're talking, we're communicating about it. And then there's a point where there's like a kickoff point, and I let them know, I'm like, this is the last part of our collaboration process. If this looks good to you and I'm on the right track and we're sharing the same vision, all I need is the thumbs up.
Yeah.
And then magic happens in the studio, and I'll be in touch when your piece is finished.
Yeah.
And then they know that, and they're like, take as long as you need. I don't need anything in between that. I'm like, you're always welcome to jump in and check in. I don't provide, stages. I don't provide photo references of stages. That's just not part of my process. And for me, I need to protect that creative process so that I can create the most stellar work of art for you.
Yeah.
So that's how I handle it. I think bringing them through that clear expectation just makes it so much more comfortable for them, and everybody's on the same page. So that's one of the ways I protect my creative process with my commissions. As far
Let me
as
just pause right there and say that was, again, just great insight on that. I would say I do the same thing. I don't give people, pictures along the way. And I think sometimes artists, depending on how sensitive you are and that sort of thing, you can kind of think, well, gosh, they're trying to check up on me. They don't trust me or whatever. A lot of times I call those buying questions. This is just your client. Maybe they've never done this before. Maybe they don't know what commissioning is like. So they're just trying to figure out the boundaries of, okay, what's this going to look like once I write you this big deposit check? and you sail off into email land, and you promise me a date. What is this going to look like? And you learn to read that. I guess I did. Over the years, you learn to read the difference between an objection, like, I don't want to do this, this is a deal breaker, versus this is a, just a buying question. I'm trying to navigate this process and see how it works. So
right. And I've also found that when the client understands your process, they're very respectful about it.
That's right.
They want you to be set up to create the best work for them. Like, it's in their best interest. So as long as you're being very honest and upfront and clear about it, I've never had a client be like, oh, you don't send me process shots along the way, I'm out. Never.
Exactly.
Not once. They're just like, whatever you need, thanks for letting me know that this is how you work best.
Right. I tell them too, I said, listen, every piece of art, I don't care who's making it, every piece of art goes through the ugly, awkward adolescent stage.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
And I said, you don't want to, trust me, you do not want to see it at that stage. I don't want to see it at that stage. I'm trying to have enough faith to push through that, right? So,
yes. Oh, exactly.
I'm sure as heck not going to send it to you.
Yeah, spot on. You couldn't have said it better.
That's good. So what else?
All right. So I also think it's really important, when we're still talking about working with clients here, but to establish that you're the authority. You are the authority, but guide them gently through it. You don't want to be like, I'm not going to show you the work along the way because you might say something that's going to mess my head up. You don't want to say it to them like that. You want to guide them through it. And I know people like to have a certain part invested in it. I work with both. Some clients are like, you're the artist, I don't have the time. I've got to go work on my work. You do this best, just take it and run with it. And other clients really, this was their special dog or their special horse, and they want to have a say in it. They want you to know the importance of that animal or that special person in their life. So it's important to kind of give them a platform in your process. At least I believe it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think it's really important to establish yourself as the authority, but guide them through and let them know, look, this is what I'm going to do for you and how as your artist. And this is what the process is going to look like. And they've just responded really well.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I mean, I remember I did a piece one time for a lady, and I got there, and I was going on their property to harvest, and she said, I want you, her grandkids pulled up in the car, and I was like, oh, this is about to get crazy. And she's like, would you mind if my grandkids went with you? And I was like, okay, I've never done this before. Like here I go out with a chainsaw and, I'm about to harvest all this stuff. She came out with us, the grandkids came, but that piece became so special for them, because that they were a part of that process, and honoring that process, whether you're using like you said, a special animal, a relationship they've had, or like me on their property or whatever it is, special memory, that just continues to build that deep connection that makes all the difference. So
it really does. It's hugely important. And I think for them, when they have that piece, if it's something you've created or something I've created, they have that in their home, and they can think, of those conversations you had with them.
that's right.
And I think as an artist too, it's important to always be thinking about the client, not, I think we do, I don't know, maybe not everybody, but we can get sensitive. It's our work. We pour our heart and soul into it, and we feel, like a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? We want them to love it, and we might even be a little insecure sometimes about it. But if we think about it from the viewpoint, the vantage point of our clients, then we can try to think of it in a different light. How can I make this process special to them? How can I make this process unique to them? How can I make their opening beautiful and memorable? Because when they have this in their home, every time they look at it, all those emotions of the process are going to be there.
Right.
It's an active piece of art because they've interacted with it in some way in the creation of it. Right. So I think it's just really important to always be thinking of your client. You want to treat your clients like gold. You want them to feel inspired as you're creating it. However you want to include them.
I couldn't agree more. I say this ad infinitum to all the folks in our mentoring program, but I'm like, no connection, no sale. The difference between, you could be a great artist, fabulous, talented, all this kind of stuff. If you do not learn, though, how to make connection with your clients in the marketplace and then deepen that connection as they become prospects and clients and that sort of thing, you will have a hobby. The difference in people that really have thriving art businesses, those that don't, is that connection level. And so again, guys, as you're listening to this is absolute gold from two veterans who've been doing this a while and been around the block and sold a whole bunch of art. So good stuff. Anything else on this as we wrap it up today? You just pouring out gold stuff today.
I think I've said a lot of what I've been wanting to say. I would love to inspire artists in their entry, in their while they're beginning to work with clients, just to increase, one step at a time, and just get over yourself and just think about your client.
That's right. Now, hey, we have a ton of painters that listen to the Thriving Christian Artist podcast, in addition to writers and sculptors and jewelers and potters and fiber people and all that other stuff. But you're a painter. You love to inspire painters, and you have been gracious enough to offer just a free gift to all those painters that are out there who want to loosen up a little bit, who want to try to find their style. So talk a little bit about that and where the best place is. Folks can connect with you, and we'll be sure to give the link in the show notes so people can grab the freebie we're talking about.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. I think your listeners are going to love this. I have put together a free painting guide. It's to help artists discover how to loosen up their paint, how to be expressive with it, and how to overcome overworking your painting. A lot of artists tend to get stiff and their work gets a little bit lifeless, and a lot of time perfectionism sets in, and it can just be detrimental to their growth as an expressive painter. And so I just have this chock full of great, valuable tips and wonderful guides throughout this PDF painting guide. And I think they're just going to really love it. I've been hearing from all different artists how much it's affecting their work for the better.
That's awesome.
Let me tell you where you can grab that. That would probably be helpful. They can go to jenbrandonstudio.com/artists.
Wonderful. Well, Jen, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's just so encouraging to see the incredible journey that you've been on, that you're continuing to be on, and that you're also turning and inspiring other artists to do the same thing. So thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Likewise.